We only had to wait 2 decades, but Baldur's Gate 3 is here. Well, sort of. Larian's successor to the phenomenal Infinity Engine cRPGs of old has released onto Steam in early access, and it's a meaty slab of old-school role-playing goodness. It's got a few rough edges, of course, but that's par for the course when it comes to early access, but it's shaping up to be a barnstorming title. If you're thinking of holding off until it's in a more complete state, don't worry, the classic-style cRPG has seen a massive resurgence in recent years, and here are a handful of modern spiritual successors to the great RPGs of the 90s and early noughties that should tide you over until Baldur's Gate 3 fills out a little bit more. Now, it would be remiss to begin without acknowledging that you can still play a bunch of those classics. Beamdog's excellent enhanced editions of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 are great places to start, and they can be played on tablet from the comfort of your sofa or bed or bathroom or wherever you like, and they're good. Like really, really good. GOG.com has made a pretty profit by making every older millennial's favourite games of yesteryear playable again, so you can fire up Neverwinter Nights and Icewind Dale and Daggerfall and Planescape and more. And while I might well do a best cRPG list of all time down the line, this is all about modern takes on the genre. And we're hardly spoiled for choice there either. Let's go. Oh man, Obsidian are great. And that's because they formed out of the ashes of Black Isle, one of the very best studios from that golden era of cRPGs. Now, Tyranny is a game with a twist. You play as the baddies. You're cast as an arbiter of law and justice in a world devastated by war and violent conquest, dispatched to the last resisting region by your godlike overlord to snuff out the remaining embers of rebellion. Now, Tyranny plays a lot like Obsidian's Pillars of Eternity, itself a refined take on the Infinity Engine classics of old, but with greater emphasis on the moral quandaries of being an utter bastard. It's like being a high-ranking officer in Sauron's army. As you make allies and enemies alike, how low will you stoop? What despicable choices will you make? Will you follow the path laid out for you and dominate for the glory of your overlord? Or will you turn the tide for the good of the world and suddenly develop a conscience? Will you bring your considerable influence to support a certain underboss? Or will you take all of the power and reward for yourself? Tyranny brings a fresh perspective to the fight between good and evil, putting you on the side of the big bad, and it's kind of all the better for it. In many ways, it was In Exile's Wasteland 2 Kickstarter that ushered in this resurgence of cRPGs. For years, those of us saying, I'd pay good money for a spiritual successor to the classic Fallout games, had nothing to actually spend that money on, and then Wasteland 2 happened. Now, 6 years on, In Exile have struck gold once again with Wasteland 3. This game is a beast, with vast areas of frozen Colorado to explore. Seemingly small decisions can have far-reaching consequences, and your actions can open up wildly different paths depending on your approach. This is a game that rewards investment and intelligence with fast-paced tactical combat and plenty of Easter eggs and secrets to uncover. But crucially, the world in Wasteland 3 is one that you inhabit and live in, rather than just proving a backdrop for action. Everything you do, and this includes playing in co-op, affects the world and the people around you. Surprise, surprise, there's more Obsidian on this list. I told you they were great. Now, if you cross China Mieville's The Scar with some classic RPGs, a splash of Sunless Sea, and a bunch of pirates, you'd wind up with something close to Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire. Taking place several years after the events of the first game, Deadfire finds you basically chasing after a rogue god on an epic voyage of adventure and discovery through the unexplored Deadfire archipelago and solving all of the region's problems and squabbles along the way, as you do in RPGs. There's now the option to choose between real-time pause combat and a more turn-based affair at the start. The battle system is just an all-round excellent upgrade over that of the original game. You get to customize your ship, prowl the high seas, and make a whole bunch of meaningful choices that impact the world and the characters around you. It's also got some of the best writing in a game this side of the year 2000. Speaking of excellent writing, most cRPGs see you playing the role of a fantastical hero or sweeping up the mess in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Less common are games where you slip into the shoes of an amnesiac alcoholic detective in an alternative 1950s magical realist dystopia where your stat points develop in relation to the fragile makeup of your warped psyche. Welcome to Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium doesn't really have much combat in it, but the skill and conversation systems in this game are on another level compared to pretty much anything else we've seen. Every little interaction, every seemingly minor object or person can send you down a proverbial rabbit hole. This isn't a game about battles on a field, but rather battles of and with the mind, set against a backdrop of urban murder and intrigue. If Deadfire is the RPG version of China Miéville's The Scar, then Disco Elysium is the gaming equivalent to his equally excellent The City in the City. If you want to try an RPG that itself tries something new, give this a bash. You won't be disappointed. As well as resurrecting Baldur's Gate, it turns out Larian themselves have created arguably the best modern cRPG in recent years. Divinity: Original Sin 2 is a game that prizes interaction and consequence above all else. Rivellon is a world that feels so alive, reacting and responding to your machinations in myriad ways. It's a massive sandbox filled with an array of engaging personalities and systems that have been expertly written and constructed. Nothing here feels superfluous, which is truly impressive in a game of this size. And Original Sin 2 is a game that truly marries the detail-oriented old-school RPG sensibilities of yore with truly modern presentation. It's drop-dead gorgeous, perhaps a little more accessible and intuitive than some of the other titles on this list, and it's highly customizable. The freedom you have to approach your objectives is dizzying at times in this game, from developing skill and spell combinations that can dominate the battlefield to non-violent methods of solving problems, reaching new areas, and getting the things that you want. That breadth and depth is matched in the game's approach to building out your character and the tools it delivers to allow you to really inhabit a role. On top of it all is the ability to play in co-op and also tap into the Game Master mode that recalls tabletop D&D in the best possible way, allowing you or one of your friends to craft your own stories for a motley band of adventurers. That sounds like a lot, but Original Sin 2 is truly easy to get into, and man, it's going to keep you occupied for hours upon hours upon hours. So those are my picks, but what about yours? What are your favourite modern cRPGs? Let me know in the comments, and we'll be back same time next week for another top 5. Cheers for watching, folks. Bye!